Okay, we have the honor of Chris Langdon. Thank you so much. One of the highest IQs in the world, higher than Einstein. I cannot imagine how your brain thinks every day, especially about other people around you. And you're the author of Cognitive Theoretic Model of the Universe. We just had Donald Hoffman in, and boy, he blew my mind.
Yeah, Hoffman's actually a pretty smart guy. He's got this GUI, or I think he calls it MUI theory, and he's got a GUI. You know what a GUI is? It's a
Yeah.
graphic user interface. So, but he doesn't have any place to stick the graphic user interface. Okay, it takes a computer system. Okay, so you've got to model reality as a simulation in order to do that. You've got to model reality in some way analogous to a the Matrix, for example. Okay, and Donald doesn't have that. He's been working on it for a while. Like I say, he's a smart guy. He's got some collaborators, but he's got like the same old approach to it that a lot of other people have. There are a couple of theories of consciousness out now that are a little bit slanted toward computation theory and that kind of thing, but this is a little bit above that. Now, there's another interview that I did a while ago in which I think Donald Hoffman has been interviewed by that interviewer as well recently, and I just don't think he's catching on. I'm not exactly one of the club in academia. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So Hoffman probably has no idea of what I'm doing. Right? He's not going to hear about me through academia. That's a grapevine. You see, and I'm not in that grapevine. That's if you want to talk about a closed club that locks the door against any outsider, academia is it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the worst thing going
No,
in that respect.
Chris, I
So
know all
Donald
about
is
that.
Donald's kind of
Yeah.
stuck in the middle of that. So that's where he's at on that. So although I would certainly hope that someday he will find out what kind of system it is he needs to stick his GUI into.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
Now, with what you do, and when I was reading through it, you can ask him. I was all excited because this is my thing. I've gone down this rabbit hole for the last 6 months, hoping that there's actual UFOs and everything else. So when we talk about reality, I know. Well, the government blew it. They blew it with too much of this now. I had hope, but
They've
all
blown it in every conceivable way.
yeah, every bit of hope I had is now gone. But what's your theory with that? What's your theory on reality? And then, do you think Hoffman's right as far as this is an interface of some sort?
Well, yes, there's Hoffman's 100% correct. We have perceptions. In some ways, those perceptions don't align with the logic that we think has to be there in order for those perceptions to arise, right? No, he will show you optical illusions. You can see optical illusions where the brain is actually adding data into whatever the input is and being misled in certain respects. Hoffman's point is that it's got to be adaptive. Okay, the reason that something like that survives, that you get this kind of mutated perception, is that it has adaptive value. So it adds to the fitness of the organism.
Well, with that, what he's saying is that it's like everybody's born with meta glasses on, and then when you take them off, who knows what's outside of there? That there is no space and time. That conscience creates space and time. And then in all,
Consciousness, yeah,
yeah, and you do agree with that?
to a certain extent, yes, but I can actually go into the nuts and bolts of it, whereas he can't.
Go into the
Okay.
nuts and bolts of it if you can.
Well, he's talking about space time. Space time has a certain definition. Basically, what it is a sequence of states. We can't discern anything in space time without actually identifying states. This means that the way we interface with space time, it's nothing but a series of snapshots. It's like the old video reels, video cameras.
Yeah.
You had strips of film with frames on them. Okay, so it's one frame after another, and we get the illusion of motion. When you try to build a manifold, uh, a medium of reality, and that's what space time is supposed to be, you find that you have problems with continuity. So it's got to be this kind of frame after frame after frame. Now, when you have frame after frame after frame, you're not seeing the transitions between the frames.
Hmm.
Okay, those are your
Right.
intervals, those are your state transformations. It takes a whole extension of the space time manifold in order to accommodate those intervals or those transformations. Okay. And this is the kind of thing that most people who deal with space time have no idea. They don't know what a medium is, they don't know how it works. et cetera, et cetera.
Now, is that because they're too just ingrained in whatever philosophy they had studied or book they studied for 30 years? Even though they know, say, Chris's theory is 100% accurate, I'm not going to go against the grain because I've put 30 years into this.
Yeah, it's something like that. Basically, academia used to be about education. Now it's about education, indoctrination, and social engineering. Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of indoctrination that goes in. Now, when you're a guy, if you're in a mathematics or physics curriculum or something like that, it's hard. You got to work your butt off. You got to solve a lot of problems. They're giving you a lot of work to do, and these guys get in there. And meanwhile, as they do these problems and are made into slaves by their thesis advisors and so forth, right? They kind of fall into that indoctrination, and it's a mental model. They build mental models. The mental models they are using to solve their problems are the ones that they use. They become ingrained, and pretty soon these guys can't escape. They can't imagine what else there could possibly be besides what they're dealing with. In the case of the space-time manifold and even the classical manifold of classical physics, they're dealing with a classical manifold, which is the real manifold, right? Usually it's an R with an exponent n up top. N is the dimensionality of the manifold, right? It's just a coordinate space. It's a Cartesian coordinate space, right? You got 3 coordinates, x, y, z, and then if you want to turn it into space-time, then you add a 4th coordinate, which is time. Okay, this is the way they build that. That doesn't work for really modeling the dynamics of a space.
Right,
now,
because we made time, right? Because we made time. So how would that work? We made time.
Well, it works because to a certain extent, time has to align with physical dimensions of space. Otherwise, we can't see anything move. We can't see anything change. Sure. So because time aligns with the physical dimensions of space, it can, to a certain extent, be treated as a spatial dimension, which is what physicists are doing when they add a 4th dimension to the manifold, right? And that way they get a 4-dimensional manifold, pseudo-Riemannian manifold, and that is space-time as a physicist deals with.
Wow.
Right. Okay. But the problem is, once again, that is Rn. That is a manifold that doesn't work. The manifold shuts itself down because its points are cuts. They're not actual points, actual things that exist in the manifold. They're discontinuities. They're actual cuts in the manifold. And when you add all those cuts together, guess what you get?
Nothing.
Who's saying?
Yeah.
There's nothing there. There's nothing there. You add a bunch of zeros up, no matter how many times you add 0 to itself, all you get is 0. Right.
So
these guys, I mean, Lord knows, and most of them, of course, are highly trained in calculus. You want to get through, math in college, especially in a curriculum like physics, you need at least 2 years of hardcore calculus in order to do that. And these calculus instructors have been telling people for years, well, we can use the Cauchy-Weierstrass method, and just have these limit points. And then we have infinite converging series that approach the limit points. And we use this epsilon delta relationship to prove that if you get close enough to one of these limit points, then there's always a value of your function that is within that. But you never get to the limit.
Right.
These guys never actually reach the limit. That's why it's called a limit. It's a cut. Yeah. It's an actual hole in the manifold, so they can't get there. Right. And they've forgotten about this, and they say, well, nevertheless, we have dynamics, and things are moving from one point to another. It's exactly what you cannot do in a real manifold.
Wow.
So you have to, if you want to really understand what's going on, then you've got to change that to something else. And that's what the CTMU contains, something called a conspansive manifold that is designed to do that.
So, Chris, I wanted to ask, why is it that very intelligent people that have very good journalistic writings, like you have a book coming out soon, why is Substack the choice of platform to write such type of things?
Well, Tommy, it's like this. You get deplatformed any place else. Most people who are on Substack were originally on something like Patreon. I mean, this is I hate to say this. I don't know what your legal constraints are,
Nothing.
But Patreon deplatformed us for no reason whatsoever and stole $6,000 from us. And that's when we went to Substack.
They deplatformed you for this kind of stuff?
No, they wouldn't even tell me what they deplatformed me for.
Holy shit.
There was never an explanation. We tried to get an explanation out of Patreon for why that, and we were actually working our way up. We had a good following on Patreon. Boom. And
Wow.
we say, well, what happened? Was there anything wrong? Up yours. You're done.
Wow.
And that's it.
Wow.
That's what these people do. I mean, they're disgusting. I mean, I can't stand these people anymore. Anyway, Substack hasn't pulled that on me yet. So until it does, Substack it is.
That's a new ringer. I had never heard that one before. Wow.
And there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go hire a lawyer and you can go to court and you can go through the motions. And you know what they say, you can't beat the ride, right? Paying all that money, shelling out to a lawyer every day, it will kill you one way or the other. So most people don't fight it.
Right,
They
by
just walk
the time
away.
you're done suing them, you spent
All
all the money that you could have made from it, you lost, and they're going to win anyway.
and many years sometimes.
Yeah.
So I've been through that before. We've had like 2 or 3 lawsuits, which I had to handle. I had to write the briefs and all that jazz myself, and it takes a huge amount of time.
Yeah,
Right. I always win,
this.
but it takes time to do that.
Right.
You've actually got to. I mean, and there's a lot of courtroom protocol that a guy, unless you have a law degree, you don't know all of these things. So you have to hire a lawyer to submit your briefs and so forth, and this leads to a great expenditure of time.
I just can't believe over this.
Yeah.
Out of all things, obviously you're onto something they don't want other people to know.
Yep.
There you go.
Well, yeah. It's basically I say what I want to when I want to say it. It's as simple as that. I mean, there are certain things that you can't really talk about without endangering your freedom of expression. In other words, they're gonna what they like, what they don't like. Well, for example, what you're showing right here, they're not gonna like that.
Well,
I don't care.
Luckily,
I don't care.
we're on Spotify, and I'm under contract, so we can say and do whatever we want.
Precisely. I'm gonna more or less tell it the way I see it.
Beautiful.
I'm a compulsive truth teller, so this is what happens.
Love it.